Imagine for a second that you're the finance minister of a powerful country. You've built factories, your exports are booming, your people are working, your economy is growing. But there's a problem. Every time you sell something to the world, you don't get paid in your own currency. You get paid in US dollars. And now, suddenly, the United States raises interest rates. Not your country, not your central bank. Theirs. Your currency crashes, your debt explodes, inflation surges, investors flee. You did everything right, so why are you still losing control? And here's the real question. Why can't you just stop using the dollar? Why can't the world just quit?
To understand this trap, we need to go back, not decades, but to a very specific moment. It's July 1944. The world is still at war, but 44 countries gather in a small town in New Hampshire. The goal? Design the future of global money. Before this, the system was chaos. Countries devalued their currencies. Trade collapsed. The Great Depression proved something brutal. When money breaks, everything breaks. So they made a deal. Every currency would be tied to the US dollar, and the dollar, that would be tied to gold. Simple, stable, predictable. At the time, it made sense. The U.S. held about 70% of the world's gold reserves. Its economy was untouched by war. Its industrial machine was unstoppable. The dollar became the anchor. And for a while, it worked. But hidden inside this system was a flaw, a quiet imbalance, one that no one fully understood yet. Because what happens when one country controls the world's money? What happens when that country starts printing more of it? But here's where it gets interesting. The Bretton Woods system created something unprecedented. The dollar wasn't just a currency anymore. It became the global currency. Oil, priced in dollars. Trade, settled in dollars. Reserves, held in dollars. Now, let's do the math. If you're a country exporting goods, say Japan in the 1960s, you earn dollars. What do you do with them? You can't spend them all immediately, so you store them. Where? In U.S. banks, in U.S. Treasury bonds. So suddenly, the entire world is financing the United States. That's the first twist. The U.S. gets to spend more than it earns because everyone else needs dollars. It's like having a credit card that the entire planet is forced to pay off. And for a while, nobody complained because the system seemed stable. But underneath, pressure was building. Fast forward to 1971. The U.S. has a problem. It has printed way more dollars than it has gold to back them. Countries like France start asking questions. Then they start demanding gold in exchange for their dollars. And here's the kicker. The U.S. doesn't have enough. So on August 15th, 1971, President Richard Nixon goes on TV and makes a decision that changes everything. He cuts the dollar's link to gold, just like that. No more gold backing. No more hard anchor. The dollar becomes pure trust. Now think about how insane that is. The entire world is using a currency backed by nothing but confidence. And yet, no one walks away. Why? Because there's no alternative. And that's where the trap begins to tighten. If the dollar was going to survive without gold, it needed something else. So the U.S. made another deal, this time with Saudi Arabia. In the 1970s, the agreement was simple. Oil would be priced only in dollars. In return, the U.S. would provide military protection. Now, let's break this down. Every country needs oil. If oil is priced in dollars, every country needs dollars. And how do they get dollars? By exporting goods or borrowing them, which means the dollar isn't just useful anymore, it's mandatory. This is what economists call the petrodollar system. But let's call it what it really is, a global dependency machine. And once you're inside it, getting out is nearly impossible. Now here's where things get darker. Countries don't just hold dollars, they borrow them. And this is where the trap becomes brutal. Imagine you're a developing country, Argentina, Turkey, Indonesia. You borrow billions in dollars because interest rates are low. Everything looks good until the U.S. changes policy. When the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, the dollar strengthens, your currency weakens, and suddenly your debt becomes more expensive. Let's do the math. You borrowed $100 billion when your currency was stable. Now your currency drops 30%. That same debt just got 30% heavier without you borrowing a single extra dollar. That's not economics, that's gravity, and countries start collapsing under it.
We've seen this movie before, over and over again. Mexico, 1994. The peso collapses. Capital flees. The country nearly defaults. Asia, 1997. Thailand, Indonesia, South Korea. Currencies crash. Stock markets implode. Millions lose jobs. Argentina, 2001. Debt explodes. Banks freeze withdrawals. The economy implodes. Different countries, different years. Same pattern. Dollar debt. U.S. tightening. Crisis. And here's the twist. When everything falls apart, where do investors run? Back into the dollar. The very system that caused the problem becomes the safe haven. It's like a fire that sells you water.
Now let's talk about something that sounds like a good thing. A strong dollar. For Americans? Great. Imports are cheaper. Inflation is lower. But for the rest of the world, it's a nightmare. Because global trade is priced in dollars. When the dollar rises, everything becomes more expensive. Oil, food, commodities. Now imagine you're a country importing energy. Your costs skyrocket. Your inflation surges. Your people suffer. And you can't control it. Because the decision was made in Washington, not in your capital. That's the paradox. The stronger the dollar gets, the more the world struggles. And yet, they still can't leave. Now, you might be thinking, why don't countries just create their own system? They've tried. China has pushed the yuan in global trade. Russia has tried to move away from dollar settlements. The EU has attempted to strengthen the euro's role. Even alliances like BRICS have talked about alternatives. But here's the problem. Trust. The dollar isn't dominant just because of power. It's dominant because of liquidity, stability, and scale. U.S. financial markets are the deepest in the world. You can move trillions of dollars in and out, instantly. Try doing that anywhere else. And then there's military and political power. Let's be honest. The dollar isn't just backed by the economy. It's backed by influence. And that makes replacing it incredibly difficult.
So now we arrive at the real truth. The dollar trap isn't enforced by force. It's enforced by incentives. You use dollars because everyone else does. You hold dollars because you need stability. You borrow dollars because they're cheaper, until they're not. It's a network effect, like social media. You don't leave because your entire network is there. Except this isn't about messages. It's about money. And leaving isn't inconvenient. It's catastrophic.
Now let's talk about the moment things nearly snapped. A global pandemic hits. Markets crash. Trade freezes. Panic spreads. And suddenly, the world runs out of dollars. Yes, dollars. Companies, banks, governments, all scrambling for liquidity. The demand for dollars spikes so high that global markets start freezing. So what does the U.S. do? It opens swap lines with other central banks. Basically, it lends dollars to the world. Think about that. In a global crisis, the entire financial system depends on one country's currency and its willingness to provide it. Who wins? The United States. Because it becomes the lender of last resort to the entire planet. Who loses? Everyone else. Because their survival depends on decisions they don't control. That's the breaking point. Not a collapse, but a realization. The system isn't just dominant, it's indispensable.
Now, before you sit back and think, that's just history, look around. The same patterns are happening right now. Rising U.S. interest rates, emerging market currencies under pressure, debt levels at record highs, over $300 trillion globally. Countries are quietly trying to reduce dollar dependence, but progress is slow, because every attempt runs into the same wall: liquidity, trust, scale. This is the canary in the coal mine. If the dollar system ever cracks, it won't be gradual. It will be sudden and global.
So what does this teach us? First, power isn't just about military strength. It's about control of systems. The U.S. doesn't just influence the world. It operates the infrastructure of global finance. Second, the hidden pattern, is dependency. The more the world uses the dollar, the harder it becomes to leave. It's a self-reinforcing loop. And third, this matters to you. Because inflation, interest rates, currency crashes, they're not just local events. They're connected to a global system you didn't choose, but still live inside.
So here's the question you should be asking yourself. What happens if the world ever does find a way out? Does the system collapse, or does something even bigger take its place? Because one thing is certain, the dollar trap didn't happen by accident, and it won't end quietly. If you found yourself rethinking how global power really works, hit subscribe, because the next video dives into the rise of digital currencies and whether they can finally break this system. And before you go, let me know in the comments, do you think the world will ever truly escape the dollar, or is this game permanent?